Hi there, welcome back to another episode of Refill My Pillbox with me. My name's Lai and I'm 25 years old, living and working in the UK on peritoneal dialysis. In this week's episode, I'll be talking about the really hot weather that we're experiencing in the UK. We're having temperatures as high as 36 and 37 centigrade, and both myself and the UK are just not built for it. I'm currently on a fluid restriction of about 1 litre of fluid intake each day, and I've been finding it really difficult to maintain it. As I suspect many of you who are on dialysis at the moment are too. So whether you are on hemodialysis or peritoneal dialysis, I believe in many cases we are all assigned some level of fluid restriction. In summary, the reason for the fluid intake restriction is to avoid fluid overload. And this is when our body retains excess fluid which cannot be expelled because our kidneys aren't working. So the balance of water within our body isn't being regulated properly. Therefore, we must regulate it ourselves through a restriction of the amount of fluid we intake, whether that is through food or beverages. Ultimately, the cause of concern really is this fluid overload, because if the excess fluid starts to gather in the ankles, particularly around the chest, where the lungs are, or at the back, it can really lead to some high risks of difficulties breathing, as well as just some major discomfort when you're on dialysis. So it's kind of really really that we maintain this fluid restriction as a result. And then these really hot temperatures that we're having right now is just honestly so difficult to really think about fluid restriction. Obviously, we're allowed to flex our fluid restriction as we perspire, because perspiring is another form of taking liquid off the body, therefore we can replace that. But at the end of the day, you still have to be so careful about, how much fluid you're intaking. And that's not just through liquids, it's also through what we eat. Not that I'm really expecting anyone to be drinking soup in this hot weather, but I think what we're really thinking about is things like ice creams and ice lollies, where once they melt, that still becomes part of your fluid intake. And just tracking all of this can be such a pain, to be honest. So my one big tip that I have for this video in terms of managing your fluid intake and keeping cool in the summer in this really hot weather that we're having is eating pomegranate. And I know that sounds so simple and ridiculous, but hear me out. I think pomegranate is the perfect fruit to have if you're on peritoneal dialysis. Yes, it may be a bit high in potassium, but if you account for that, or you don't have any restrictions on your potassium, I think it's a perfect fruit for this hot weather, because each segment of the fruit actually does not contain much juice, and is a very refreshing fruit to eat, despite how annoying it is to actually The really big benefits of pomegranate is that each segment of the fruit doesn't contain too much fluid in it, yet it's enough juice inside to really wet the whistle and to stave away the thirst throughout the day, and as well as it being quite a sweet and lovely kind of fruit to eat. Furthermore, what it has is that I would say 80% of a pomegranate is fibre or roughage, and that is perfect for any peritoneal dialysis patient. As we all know, is really important that we get our fibre. So to me, a pomegranate is the perfect fruit, and it's what's really been getting me through these really hot days. Nevertheless, I've been really struggling with the heat, not only with the fluid restriction, but just general well-being. It's so hot that, honestly, my productivity is an all-time low, and I'm not able to get a good night's sleep on dialysis, which is even worse when you have a full-time job. So yeah, that kind of concludes my rant and my big tip of the day for managing this heat that we're having. This is kind of my first time really experiencing this level of heat and struggle whilst on dialysis. But yeah, I just really hope that anyone who's watching this who is on dialysis and is struggling in this heat, you're not alone, and I hope my tip of pomegranates really helps you out. Remember, this is me saying to eat a pomegranate and not just drink pomegranate juice, as that will obviously contribute to your intake for the day. I'd love to hear any recommendations for next week's episode. Otherwise, stay safe. Bye.